You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off, and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today I am going to dive deep into the topic of imposter syndrome. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term imposter syndrome, it's when you doubt your own accomplishments or skills and have a fear of being exposed as a fraud with whatever you're setting out on to accomplish. It's attributing any success you do achieve to luck rather than your own abilities, and then having this looming feeling that the people around you will eventually realize you're not as capable as them. It falls under the fear of success, which I had as an episode not too long ago, but I think imposter syndrome is a subset of the fear of success because it encompasses both sides of accomplishing something. The before, where you limit yourself from going after an opportunity, and the after, when you chalk up your accomplishments to luck and don't believe you actually earned what you achieved. This is so common in your 20s because it's often brought on by new challenges or transitions that force you out of your comfort zone, which is a pretty regular occurrence throughout this decade, and why I wanted to talk about it on this podcast. We are constantly getting thrown into new experiences, and it really makes you doubt your abilities as to whether or not you are capable of handling them or any other challenge that will arise. Part of the work I get to do with my clients is getting their shit together, or in other words, breaking down different adulting responsibilities into more bite-sized pieces so that by the end of our partnership, you are a fully functioning adult and feel confident about who you are, how you exist in the world, and the direction you're heading. And that confidence overpowers imposter syndrome. Not to be confused with living in a state of delusion, but rather being realistic around your own goals and aspirations and a reliable and sustainable roadmap to get you there. I had a client recently tell me, Jess, when did I become an adult? And I joked and said, when we started working together. She went from living life a bit too much in the moment to planning for her future, budgeting, eating 3 nutritious meals a day, seeking out a new job opportunity, balancing her social life, meal prepping, moving her body. God, the list goes on. And this wasn't achieved overnight either. This took months because it's a process and it takes time to learn and then further develop these adulting skills. Most of us, if not all of us, get thrown into the adult world and are just expected to know how to do everything. But the part they don't tell you, and by they, I mean the older generations, is that they had to fall flat on their face multiple times before they got their shit together. Yet, they expect you to just know what to do. They are so out of touch with their 20s that they forget about the struggles and tough life lessons they once experienced too. But it's because they didn't have a coach like me to make this transition through your 20s much easier. That, and it appears that our parents and grandparents' generations had a much more straightforward path to follow, where you go to school, get a job, and you're set. Going off the beaten path wasn't common because salaries kept up with the cost of living. Today, inflation is so high that many 20-somethings need multiple jobs to keep their head above water or realize going off on their own will earn them more. I was part of the second group because my job choice had such a low cap of earnings where the most I would ever be able to make as a senior designer working under someone else is about $80,000 a year. As an entrepreneur, I have a very realistic goal of making $100,000 by 2026. But the decision to become self-employed also comes with needing your shit together and for it to be insanely together and your self-talk to be able to overcome the imposter chatter that goes on in your head. However, I will say, if you do not feel like a fully functioning adult yet, then you are going to feel overwhelmed by your independence, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not. No one is checking in on you and making sure you're paying your bills, eating healthy foods, moving your body, and navigating your career path, social life, and finances, just to name a few. So what happens is you get overloaded with the uncertainties behind these new responsibilities that make you question your ability to handle them. And that is your imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is very normal, but it is time that you learn how to identify it and overcome it so it doesn't talk you out of going for something or being recognized for something that you did. This episode is going to highlight what happens when you let imposter syndrome take over your mind, where it might come up for you, and what you can do about it. Or in other words, create your own antidote to this unavoidable syndrome. To begin, I primarily see imposter syndrome show up in people's lives when it comes to their career and any career-related transitions like a new job, a promotion, a recognition, going back to school, or starting your own business. And then outside of your career, imposter syndrome even surfaces when you compare yourself to those on social media or around you, and if you are someone who suffers with perfectionism. It even shows up in your relationships when you lack confidence in your own worth. When imposter syndrome controls your mind, you're also letting it control your actions. So you're more likely to avoid new opportunities and hide out from the world. It prevents you from taking risks like applying for a new job or promotion because you don't think you are capable or ready. Statistically, this is more common for females than males. Hewlett-Packard did an internal review back in 2014 and found that men will apply for a promotion where they meet 60% of the requirements, whereas women will only apply when they feel they meet 100% of the requirements. Now, that is not true for everyone and every job, but it is a study that is referenced a lot, and it directly relates to your self-confidence and your relationship to imposter syndrome. Women are more likely to go after something when they feel qualified, if not overqualified for it, and will otherwise self-select out of opportunities, and men are more likely to apply despite not meeting certain qualifications. It's just something to keep in mind when you're looking for a new job or wanting to apply for a different position. Just go for it. The worst that happens is that they say no and you stay where you're at. But it's better to stay where you're at because you tried versus not even bothering because you didn't meet every single requirement listed. Another example in life where you're strengthening your imposter syndrome is when you compare yourself to the people you see online. We all know this is not a good thing because you are viewing people who are most likely strangers and influencers showing you a snapshot of their life and leave you feeling like everyone your own age is more successful, confident, or quote unquote together than you, and therefore you're the one fucking up adulting and everyone else knows what they're doing. And when you compare yourself to others, you're going to start to doubt every decision you've made and are making. And for my fellow entrepreneurs, your imposter syndrome will scream at you and cause you to worry about your capability in running a business and being successful. And as a young entrepreneur, you'll worry about not being taken seriously. I started my business when I was 24, and that was a big fear of mine, that no one would want to work with a 24-year-old because of how young I was. And while it's true, I was very young, I was also extremely capable in helping other people get their life together because I was forced to early on and had to overcome my own struggles all by myself. I had no other option but to grow up right then and there before I was ready, before I knew how, and my God, it sucked. But it brought me to where I'm at today, and now I get to help you grow up at a much easier, slower, and more manageable pace so life doesn't force you to in a moment's notice. That being said, I have had people who are older than me work with me and trust me, and I have had people who are older than me choose not to work with me because I was younger than them. That was a tough learning experience, and looking back, I know it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with their insecurities and ego. Possibly even their imposter syndrome was taking over. Even after running a business for 3 years, my coach still helps me to word things that I'm applying to, so it's not interpreted as who does this 27-year-old think she is, but rather listen to the value, knowledge, and expertise I do provide, regardless of my age. I also think imposter syndrome comes up in the entrepreneurial world when you compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. Because the truth is, unless you sit that person down and listen to their whole story and their struggles and the time it took to build their business to where it's at today, you're only going to leave yourself to fill in the missing gaps. And I would put money on the fact that those gaps you are filling are making yourself feel worse and not better. Now, whether you're an entrepreneur or a corporate world employee, the best way to combat imposter syndrome that's centered around your career is to keep a wins folder. You need to document every win you collect as you collect them so you can bank them and refer back to them for when you're starting to doubt yourself or your success. P.S. It'll also be helpful to have this folder to help you feel more confident about asking for a promotion because you have the proof to back up why you deserve a pay increase. And with that, you won't even give your imposter syndrome a chance to talk you out of it because you have the concrete evidence as to why you earned this promotion. Outside of career-related instances, imposter syndrome also likes to creep in on our dating life. Like, who am I to receive love? Or why would this person like me? And it becomes more of a question of your self-worth. Do you believe you are worthy of a healthy and loving relationship? Are you questioning if you're good enough or if your partner deserves someone better? If you frequently visit these questions in your own mind, then you are succumbing to imposter syndrome. This can also come in the form of struggling to believe the compliments your partner gives you, or that anyone gives you for that matter. And maybe you think, oh, they don't really mean it, they're just being nice. And it's because imposter syndrome drives this need for constant reassurance that they do like you, that they would love you even if you were a worm. And if you are one who suffers with imposter syndrome in relationships, then you have this looming fear that they'll leave you once they find out who you really are, or they'll leave you when they finally come to their senses and see that you're not good enough for them. As a result, you'll close yourself off emotionally because you won't let yourself be vulnerable with this person with a fear that they will leave you when they see your weak points, or worse, use your weak points against you. And that lack of vulnerability creates distance between the two of you, which will only further confirm your original beliefs that they won't accept you for you because someone better is out there for them. Because remember that your beliefs create your experiences and your experiences confirm your beliefs. So if you believe you aren't worthy of love, then you will hide out from potential mates or current partners, and as a result, no one will love you, which will then confirm that belief that you aren't worthy of love. Imposter syndrome in relationships becomes a really big issue when your partner is also suffering with similar thoughts. For example, my ex would constantly bring me down. So instead of talking about his vulnerabilities and insecurities, he would point them out on me. He would project them on me. He would play connect the dots with my acne because he used to have really bad acne and went on Accutane when he was in high school. He would tell me that he would leave me if I gained 5 pounds, but it's because he noticed his own weight gain and would feel self-conscious about it. He would remind me all the time that he was settling and I was reaching, because a lot of relationships do have a settler and a reacher. It didn't help that at the time my guy friends would also say the same thing, come to find out later that they were messing with me and said all along I was the one that was settling. And let me tell you, I was settling. Maybe not at first, but I grew so much and became such a stronger and better version of myself throughout that relationship, outside of that relationship, but while I was still in it, that I was settling and holding myself back by staying with him. But I honestly never experienced imposter syndrome in that relationship. I was, however, a victim to his imposter syndrome, and it damaged our relationship. If you're the one suffering, you might unknowingly find yourself self-sabotaging your relationships, like pulling away or even ending a relationship because you think your partner will eventually leave you anyways, so you might as well cut it short now before your heart becomes too invested. And insert fear of commitment to the chat. No, but seriously, if you're suffering with imposter syndrome in your relationships, then please know there is a cure. So here are some things you can do to at least begin the process of overcoming it. For one, you need to communicate your insecurities with your partner. Yes, that sounds scary, but trust me when I tell you this. Everyone has insecurities. So if you open the door, the other person will most likely contribute to what they feel insecure about. And if they shame you for your insecurities, then please leave that person. Another tactic you can begin doing is accepting compliments and love at face value, meaning don't give one back or downplay the one you're receiving. That goes for the wins too. So it's practicing saying thank you and then shutting your mouth. Or when you're acknowledging your wins, it's not diminishing them. It's saying a win is a win. I've had this conversation with many clients because they'll say their win at the start of a session from that previous week and then downplay it like, oh, but this happened, so it really wasn't that good of a win. It's like, no, acknowledge the win for what it is. It's a win. Now move on. Okay, we can talk about what didn't go well after the fact, but separate the two. But back to relationships, you can also practice building your self-confidence outside of your relationships by developing interests and hobbies outside of what you guys do together. Find your own thing to do and step into it. Doing things alone helps you get to know yourself better and helps you find a partner that adds value to your life instead of finding someone who completes you. Because you've already built a life that is whole and complete by yourself. Finding someone who completes you implies that you aren't a whole, capable being outside of this relationship, which enhances that imposter syndrome because you become so afraid of missing a piece of you if the relationship comes to an end. Versus going into the relationship already whole and wanting someone who can help you up level and make your life even better. And then if you're really down bad in this syndrome, please seek out counseling or therapy to help you dig deeper as to where these feelings and thoughts come from and how you can grow past it. There is nothing wrong with getting support with something you are struggling to overcome on your own. But at the end of the day, you are going to experience imposter syndrome in multiple different parts of your life. The ones I mentioned are the most common occurrences, and they all really boil down to one thing, and I've said it several times today already, and that is your self-confidence. You need to work on building that muscle up so it's strong enough to withstand the pesky thoughts that talk you out of being able to achieve what you're after. Stop comparing yourself to what other people are doing versus what you're doing. Change your social media algorithm, block people's stories that enhance negative thoughts about yourself, and create a folder of accomplishments to be able to reflect back on for when you are feeling crappy about yourself. It doesn't even have to be work-related accomplishments, but a life folder of you winning and acknowledging those wins at face value. I have a client who just started working with me, and on our first call, before we were even in a coaching partnership, she mentioned that she sees her friends and her boyfriend living full lives and she's messing everything up. Yet, when we dove a little deeper, she realized that she was living her life based on other people's priorities and not her own. So when she would be alone during the week, if her boyfriend was traveling, she would feel empty and lost and confused, and then on the weekends would only go out with him or only do the things that he wanted to do, that he prioritized. So she started doubting her career choices and her ability to find and make new friends by herself or to go to weekend events on her own. Her imposter syndrome came from looking at other people's lives and comparing it to her own. And her remedy was to start showing up for herself and take action based on what aligns with her top priorities. As her coach, I make sure she is doing that and following through on what she says she wants from her life. And with every win she collects, her imposter syndrome voice softens. Imposter syndrome is sneaky, but hopefully by now you are better able to understand it and catch it in the act. And please know that if this is something you struggle with, because if you're someone in their 20s listening to this, then I'm 99% sure that you do, know that I can help you. All you have to do is click the Let's Chat link in the show notes and schedule a day and time that works for you to chat. Otherwise, this does conclude another episode of How to 20-something. If you liked what you heard, if you learned something new, or know someone who struggles with overcoming their own imposter syndrome, then please share this episode. Send it to a friend, post it on social media, and tag me at coach.justdiamond when you do. And give me a 5-star rating so more 20-somethings can receive support and help, because it'll boost my podcast to the top of the list. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.